Shoulder pain completely went away. Bench went up 50 more pounds, so went from 500 to 550 because my shoulders didn't hurt. Big difference between training for aesthetics and training for longevity. That's why most people like pro bodybuilders and stuff, they all have torn rotator cuffs, poor joint health, because they train isolation in areas that really pull on it. Because you got to think about your rotator cuff muscles are real small, and they go a long distance around. And anything that starts pulling it forward, tightening it up, stretches it, gets it pissed off. And then the first thing you're going to go to, like I was trying to tell Eccles for the last 15 years, he doesn't listen, is you start getting tired pulling, and the shit your back muscle should be doing, this starts doing. And then, pretty crazy, you know? Plus the muscle really doesn't have a lot of leverage anyway. If you were to do the biomechanic, so how much weight did you have on that curl, for example? Like actual weight. So you got to look on the side of the machine, it'll tell you, there's a chart on it.
16 pounds.
You had 16 pounds on it, right? What's 16 pounds on the actual tendon? You have to do the math for that. 6 times. So you're putting 80 pounds of tension with 16 pounds on the bicep, on the tendon insertion itself.
How many?
What's that?
How many did you say?
About 6 times the amount, whatever you got. So you curl a 25-pound dumbbell, it's 100 pounds of tension on the tendon. Doesn't take very long. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So your biceps meant to be a secondary muscle to help the back muscles do what they're supposed to do. It's not really meant to be isolated. So you have to be careful. What's going on, Daniel? What's up, Dwayne? What's up, Mass?
Are you in here doing biceps?
Let me see it. So we're doing bioprints right now on the firemen, and a couple of them are coming up with some ATP Labs pre-biofib. So most of us don't get enough fiber in our diets. So fiber does a couple of things when you take it in the morning. It helps level off blood sugar. It gives you the right probiotics, especially if you're taking this stuff from ATP Labs, to help you digest your food throughout the day. It's not really what you eat, it's what you absorb. And so getting your absorption up is a huge factor in making sure that the protein that you're eating and the nutrients you're taking in are actually getting shuttled in. Oh, working as a contractor, 101st Airborne. Oh, awesome. I never was at Campbell. I worked with the Airborne Division at Bragg. Tactical populations. What's going on, Troy? Ever thought of a certification so others could teach local units? Yeah, there's going to be a certification that comes out when my book gets done from Human Kinetics. I already got the test written. It's already done on periodization. A lot of the people that come and want to teach tactical or do like what I do, I usually make them come and do 12-week internships. So if your budget allows and your time allows, Troy, you might want to come and just do a 12-week internship with me, come to the fire departments with me, see what we do, see how to set up the workouts that we do with the guys, etc. So yeah, just a lot of back work. If you do a lot of back work, your arms will get bigger. You know, I don't do any bicep work. You know, and I don't have like bodybuilder biceps, but I don't have any shoulder problems either at 46. You know what I mean? So you want to be careful. Troy, I don't know. They've been kind of messing around with it for a while. I turned it in May of 23. I just got notification back on the book that they have chapters 5 and 6 now edited. So chapters 5 and 6 edited. I think we have, I don't know, once they condense it down. I had 11 or 12 chapters written. So it took them 2 years to get halfway through the book, which is kind of disappointing in my opinion, but it is what it is. I don't have any control over it. So now the focus is just starting the PhD process in October. That's going to be about a 3-year deal. Yeah, editing does take forever for sure. And it was different, you know, with my aspect. I talked to Roger, and Roger was like, you know, most people when they do books like that, they don't turn in the entire book. I took 3 years, 2.5, 3 years to write that book. And so when I gave it to him, I turned in the entire shebang, all of the chapters at once. So I'm excited for the book to come out because I want the test to come out, because I think right now the fitness and strength conditioning community needs a test that actually filters out people that shouldn't be doing this job. And there's so much in the periodization models that need to be understood and utilized, not only in tactical, but it's just in everything, that people just don't know or don't practice with. You out of here?
I'm gonna change and get back to the uniform.
Oh, okay. You working today? Oh, you're off?
Somewhere else. Not today. Oh.
So if you guys go, and I'm not going to make this a political talk, but if you guys go on Instagram and go back a couple of posts, I posted what Trump was talking about with banning and trying to marginalize the increase of autism. And I think that although the U.S. population has a lot of issues, I think that they're attacking issues that I think probably need to be done. I don't think that injecting heavy metals into the body is a good idea. I've watched and seen and read a lot of stuff on aluminum, seen its differences in hormone disruption. We've taken a handful of the fire department guys off of aluminum deodorant, right, and go to natural deodorant like Native or Dr. Squatch. Their body fat percentages go down and their muscle mass goes up. It's almost crazy. I cannot even imagine what those higher dosage aluminum in the vaccines are doing to the body long term. And I also think that it might be increasing dementia, Alzheimer's, and some other shit, right? I remember talking with the doctor that treated my grandmother, and she was massive about drinking Diet Coke out of aluminum cans. That was her big thing. She drank that more than water. She had at least 6 or 8 of them a day. And I remember the doctor talking to us about how much aluminum she had in her brain. And she went from being pretty good within 2 years to not knowing who really anybody was. And I find it concerning that we still have that kind of stuff. You know, if you look at, they put aluminum in vaccines to increase its immune response, but there's got to be that's got to be a problem. So the editing does take forever. What's a poison pill, Fisty Pose? I don't know what that is. But yeah, I think there's definitely questions to be answered on that, and questions to be asked. And I think that Tylenol, although may not be the main factor, even if it's a sub factor, I think it's important for women and just people in general to know that some of the stuff they're taking could have an effect on people. I'm not a huge fan of taking painkillers. I don't take any Tylenol, any Advil, none of that stuff, because usually something being uncomfortable or painful is usually a sign that I'm training incorrectly or I need to change something. So for me, I want to use that signal to the best of my capacity. But again, I think that sometimes we get so caught up in who we think should be elected or who is or who isn't president. We don't see that everybody has some good things about them and some bad things about them. You know, there are certain things that the Democrats believe that I think is fair. You know, I believe that everybody should have a right for abortions. It's not like we don't have 7 billion people or more on the earth. I think that, you know, there's some other things that the Democrats stand for, and there's a lot of stuff that Republicans stand for that I think is good as well. I think there has to be a balance, and you know, I think just pulling one way too far one way or the other is not necessarily a good thing. We just have to be careful with that stuff, you know. So, well, usually, Fisty Pose, usually when Republicans are in office, usually what you see is a better economy. You see better investments. So if you have money in investment accounts, Fisty Pose, you probably see your investment accounts are doing really well right now. So you have to be careful with that. I think overall having a mindset that America needs to be put first for American taxpayers is important. I think, having an idea that the American economy, the American industry needs to be taken first for the American population and not so much a global population is very important. So again, those are some of my small opinions that don't really matter. But again, I think there's a lot of things that you have to keep in mind. So again, if you talk to a lot of people that work really hard, bust their ass, most guys, Republicans, I think having a Republican mindset of, smaller government, less taxes, those things are important for a lot of people. And I think that if you look at most cities that are fairly Democrat ran are pretty shitty in general. If we look at Toronto, for example, or even Canada as a whole, if you go to Toronto where they're very liberal Democrat mindset, that town is a shithole. So, yeah, fisty pose. My reality has been based off of the last 25 years of being a working taxpayer, somebody that's busted their ass to get to where they're at. So I don't really fall for propaganda. What I fall for is looking at how things affect me and the people that I talk to that are either more financially stable than I am or have been and seen the economy shift and change over the last 50 years. A lot of the people that I talk to about political stuff tend to be over 65. They've seen vast waves of Democrat, Republican type shit. I don't think that Trump is the best Republican. I think he's definitely got some major flaws. He's not a great speaker. He's very argumentative. I think in some ways Obama was a much better speaker and a much better representation of power as far as smartness and just calculatedness. But there's a lot of things that he might have done or said or wrote that are bad as well. So again, you got to go your good and bads. But to me, I do believe in small government. I believe that people need to work hard for what they want and not get a lot of government handouts. I believe, that everybody has. Will you rather gain success or gain eagers? I'm not really sure what that means, Vanish. Sorry, I don't understand what eagers means. But again, like I said, it's one of those things. I think we just have to keep an open mind. I think that anything that's a harsh chemical or something that we might be able to avoid during certain terms of pregnancies and things like that need to be more well known. Yeah, I don't know about that fisty pose. I don't know about small government doesn't prosecute political opponents. I think both sides have done equally wrong things. What are we talking about with evidence? If we look at, I think it was the dean of Harvard that was linking the Tylenol with the autism. So we're going to sit back and say that we're smarter than the dean of Harvard University? I mean, come on. Let's get crazy. We have certain people in certain places that are, I think, trying to make a difference. I think having those chemicals, whether you're left or right, I think those are things that we need to look at, right? We don't really know who's bought or who's paid for. I have a very hard time believing that a prestigious university like Harvard is going to be bought and paid for by the Republican Party to back people. I think at this day and age, it's too easy to find out if that's, the ramifications of that from Harvard is going to lose their ability to be a trusted source. I think if you look at the stuff that came from Mount Sinai, Johns Hopkins, those places that are saying the links to some of this stuff, to me, that's a smoking gun. We have to be careful with that. I think that removing those things at certain practices, even if it's a small percentage that it'll help some people, I think is a good idea. You know, the CDC chart that I saw on the, if you want to call it epidemic, with the rise of autistic people being born or being diagnosed has went berserker in the last 20 years. There's got to be a reason for that, whether it's diagnosing or whether it's proper classification, or whether it's actually true that all this stuff's happening because the chemicals were around. Again, all I can do is come from experience. I take 300 firemen, I run them through chemical testing on a superficial level, and we take some of those chemicals away, and I see the performance and differences in body fat and muscle mass changes. So does it affect the neurological system? I'm pretty sure it probably does, just based on the fact of what I've seen it change. So again, just keep an open mind. You know, I think that anybody trying to remove unnatural ingredients from the body is a good idea. Dr. Matt, what was your experience working with Dr. Jankwish? You know, I didn't work with him a ton. We met, we talked for an extensive amount of time. He asked me to create a program for his X3. He's a huge proponent of variable resistance, which I like. If you look at some of the books that are slightly newer that I have, there's a decent amount of research that shows variable resistance being, I wouldn't say superior, but at least an alternative tool to normal resistance training. But I think there's limitations. I think that, you know, the X3 is a good piece that if you don't have access to a home gym or you need something to be able to pack and travel, I think it's a great piece, and that's why I wrote a workout for it on Traineroic. But is it better than having a full setup gym? I don't know. I don't think so. I think there's going to be limitations to it. So my big thing is glute ham raises, reverse hypers, belt squats, things that are a lot of bang for your buck with very marginal compression. Those are things that you want to have in your system. And I find that if you're looking at a compressive to traction based understanding of training, the X3 is not your best bet, but it's a great thing to have if, again, you're traveling or you're limited in space, right? So Raka, men, please reply. I don't know what you're talking about. Troy Randall, yeah. So yeah, to me, I think, yeah. I mean, he's got a product to sell, and I think it's a good product, and I think he has some backing for it. I think he has some good literature to back what he's doing. Fisty pose, I'll have a PhD in kinesiology in the year 2029 if my schedule goes correctly. So I don't know what you call a scientist, but somebody that writes a thesis and a dissertation is probably the closest to a scientist that you might know. So again, I think one of the biggest things that's opened my eyes in the last 3 to 4 years is just there's so much gray area in the middle of everything, right? So again, try to keep an open mind. I think that any kind of chemicals we can get away from are good. I think it's a good thing to do. I think you can talk to a lot of people and they'll tell you the same thing. I just don't see how injecting heavy metals is a good idea. Even if it boosts your immune system, there's got to be a repercussion for that. And that repercussion may be neurological damage at certain points. What I find interesting and what I think might be something that we need to look into is think about how many women are on GLP-1s and Ozempic right now that are getting pregnant. What is that going to do to unborn fetuses, child development? It's kind of scary, honestly, because we don't know. And I think we won't know for quite a while. But we want to be really careful with, again, adding foreign substances when we have either we're in a developmental phase, I mean, even when we're adults, but in a developmental phase, or we're carrying another life, right? You know, these chemicals are pretty severe, and the body hasn't seen anything, you know, say 100 years ago, you know, so that'd be 1926. What kind of chemicals were we around back then that are around now? And the answer is thousands, right? Teflon, you know, all this synthetic stuff, plastics, hardly anything was made of plastic in 1926, right? It was all more organic type materials, and to me, I'm not necessarily sure that that's a good thing, and so we have to be careful. So, but yeah, Dr. Jankwich is a great guy. He's awesome. He's always been super respectful for me. He's always been super awesome. So. So kind of like talking about today about like, why do I do treadmill talks? Well, treadmill talks for me is a way to burn time. I get here at the fire department pretty early. I need to get some steps in. And for me, it's kind of a way to take my mind off of just walking and actually kind of talk through different ideas, different variables. Most of it's training, It's just interesting, I look on Instagram and Facebook and I'll post an exercise on how to fix lower back pain or do something like that. It gets marginal feedback, and then you post something like asking people their thoughts on something that's slightly political and everybody goes fucking haywire. It's just like, what is going on? Like, everybody just wants to argue about shit instead of actually fix anything. I don't know. It's a crazy world we live in. I kind of liked social media 10 years ago. It seemed to be a little bit more chill. Seems like the liberal agenda has been pushed out of government right now, and it seems to just filtered all over social media like crazy. And I don't, again, I don't care which way you believe, but it's just kind of like, man, do we need to bring back Jerry Springer and all these other things so people got a place to vent? You have a mid-physique vanish. Said that to Vikram. Why are we measuring physiques? I don't know what that has to do with treadmill talk, but have at it. So I guess I need to come up with more racy topics for the YouTube Live so people actually tune in. So hopefully you guys have a great day. Hopefully you guys get some training in. If you guys want, hop on top to your Patreon, follow the workouts that we do to the T. Train Heroics, another way to do it with a little bit less of a budget. You just don't get as much Q&A about the political and economical state of the world. I know you're anxious to have your book published. Until then, is it worth getting the West Side book? My opinion, no. I learned a lot from Louis. I truly did. And I learned a lot from Louis when I was young and I was impressionable. But Louis was a better coach than a writer. And a lot of the stuff that I've read him publish or put out doesn't really mirror what I saw him coach with. I mean, not saying that what I'm saying in the book is wrong. He just wasn't a great writer. He had a lot of issues with just being able to represent his ideas in a laid out word. So the West Side book is not going to cover anything of what I cover per se, Anthony. But what I would recommend is, if you can, I would get on the Patreon channel and look at my library and then look at the notes that I've created from the books that Louis got a lot of that information from. That's probably going to be your best bet. Yeah, I'm actually working intermediate lifter. I'm working on hypertrophy manuals, or revamping the manuals now. I'm going to put them through a revamp 2.0. What's going on, Jayco? Yeah, Anthony. Yeah, I'm looking forward to mine too. But I think if you want to really see the deep down books, like I said, on top of your Patreon, it goes back like 5 years. I post a book with my notes like every 2 or 3 weeks that I'm reading, and things that's changed my training and things that I picked up from Louis and Charles Poliquin, and books that Verkhoshansky had referenced to me to read. So as far as knowledge is concerned, I think it's one of the best places to be. Intermediate lifter, they're not telling me a release date. Like I said, they just came back with they have chapters 5 and chapter 6 edited. I'm supposed to get that in email for a confirmation or a go-ahead to the next chapters. I haven't gotten that yet. So we have, I think, 4 more chapters. They still haven't sent me the paperwork to design the main cover. So, again. All right, guys, I'll talk to you guys later. I'm going to get off here and train the firemen. Hope you guys have a great day. Hopefully see you guys on Patreon. Talk to you guys later.